in the end, it doesn't really matter if things take longer than they do, because we always have more that we want to do than we have time to do. Hey folks, today a bit of a different video here. I am here with my friend Tu Vu. Hello, Tu.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, we got to talking a little bit about all the things that she has going on in her life, and it looks like Tu can probably be a little bit more organized than she is right now. So we're going to talk about that. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of you viewers as well. Do you want to share with people what you do, just for some context?
Yeah, so just to tell a little bit about myself, so I have a YouTube channel on data science, and next to that, I also have a full-time job. I'm working as a data science consultant for a large company, and 2 years ago I started taking a second bachelor program in computer science. So in the last 2 years I have been doing probably like a work of like 3 people, 3 full-time jobs at the same time. So yeah, it would be really helpful to have a conversation today, and hopefully I can take some advice from you to get more organized and more efficient in my work and not stress me out or overwhelm myself too much.
Yeah, this definitely sounds like a lot. We got the job, we got the studies, and also a YouTuber on the side is a successful YouTuber as well. I'll link her channel in the description, of course. That's a lot that's going on. So we're going to talk about a couple things that you could do to become more organized.
Yeah, that would be very nice.
But what do you do right now to keep track of all those things?
Yeah, good question. So for YouTube specifically, I use Notion for planning out my content and also research the content. So it's going quite well that way. However, for work, study, and all kinds of different things in life, then I just have a bunch of different notepads. Like I have just so many.
A lot of different notepads. You can't even hold them all.
Like I just try to kind of like make different columns for different things.
Yeah, nice.
So a lot of things I've tried, but I have so many problems with this system because I usually just miss a lot of them, and I don't actually do a lot of things that I wrote down. I need your help.
Okay, well, I think there's a lot of opportunities for you to get more organized, for keeping track of things in a bit more of a structured way. Why don't we do a little Q&A kind of format to talk about this, because then it'll be easier for people to follow along, I think.
That's a good idea. So my first question is that how can I more effectively keep track of all these different to-dos I need to do for my work, study, side projects, or YouTube? Because now I have 4 notepads here, and I'm sure there may be better tools to keep track and having an overview of this, right?
Yeah, there are. And I don't have anything against paper or against paper notepads, but at the same time, there's a lot of great apps out there these days that can just do a better job, really, for most people, especially since apps keep getting better and better, and paper is just paper. It's the same all the time. But the main thing is that you have one place, we usually call it one single source of truth, where you have written down everything that you need to do, that you want to do, that you should do, all those things. Because like if you have it split over a bunch of different notepads, you lose one, you don't bring one with you. Yeah. It's difficult to know what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the problem that I have. I've also tried some other apps before. However, I found it quite hard to keep using them. After a while, I think after a few weeks or so, I completely forgot about them because I just couldn't find the time to kind of properly update the apps so that it can like properly reflect my reality. And so I just stopped using them. Yeah. What is your advice for this?
There's really 2 parts to this question. And the first one is picking an app that you like. I always tell people in my own videos, like, some apps are better than others, right? And you want to pick one of the apps that really resonates with the way that you think. And then you want to use that consistently. Now, I have some recommendations for apps that I think are the best apps for most people. For example, people use Apple devices. I always recommend an app called Things 3. It's a paid app, so if you use Apple devices, iPhone, Mac and stuff, and you don't want to pay any money, you can also just use the Reminders app that's built into your Mac. Yeah. If you don't use Apple devices, there's other options. For example, an app called Todoist is something that can do the job for a lot of people. But once you picked an app and you feel like it resonates with you, you still have to, like you're saying, you have to keep using it. Yeah. And that's tough because you might use it for a week.
Yeah. And then you
stop.
just feel demotivated again because I probably missed some of the items, and then it all became bread, and then I just felt a bit hard to keep track of keep it up to date.
This is the worst, when the app is like 25 tasks overdue, you are late, you suck.
Yeah,
right?
I'm
Exactly.
sucked,
Yeah. So the thing is, for that, I usually recommend that people do a weekly review. This is something that I've been talking about for a long time, and I didn't come up with this. This is a well-established concept where you take some time once a week. I usually recommend Sundays to people for the day to do this, because for a lot of people, Sunday is a day where they're kind of relaxing, resetting for the next week, but it could be Wednesday, it doesn't really matter, where you take some time just to update your to-do list, basically, to think, what are all the things that I need to do? Do I have everything written down? Any things that I've already accomplished, have I checked them off of the list? If people have emailed me or sent me a message on WhatsApp or Slack or whatever, asking me to do something, have I written down that I need to do it? Have I written down by when it needs to be done? And by doing this once a week, it takes maybe 30 minutes. You can get faster at it. You really can keep your to-do app up to date and relevant, and that will make you want to keep using it. Whereas if you just sort of ignore it over time, it has nothing to do with reality anymore.
Yeah, you need to make a decision what to do with this overdue thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and also like one of the things that I have is that I have a lot of like projects I want to try on, like start a newsletter or like build a website for myself, for example. And sometimes I don't get around to doing that, or I just feel like, okay, this is not the priority right now. So should I just like remove them on the to-do list?
Yeah, that's a good question. So usually what I actually recommend people, in addition to spending some time every week figuring out what to do the next week, is maybe once a quarter or so, take some time to think about what your goals are. So we just did a video on your channel where we talked about how you might do this, so you guys should all go watch. We also did a video together on Tu's channel. We'll obviously link that in the description of this video, where we talk a little bit more about how to set goals and action steps. That's something that I actually recommend that people do about every 3 months, just to take a step back and ask themselves, what is it that I want to achieve? How am I planning to achieve it? Like, what is no longer relevant? Like maybe, half a year ago, you were suddenly like, I want to run a marathon, and you sort of like don't want to do this anymore, but you still have this guilt feeling because there's somewhere you wrote down like start training for a marathon, and every time you see it, you're like,
blocking me for like maybe the next few months because of this. Yeah.
Exactly. So it has to stay up to date, and by taking the time, this is true for the weekly review as well. By having a set time periodically when you're going to review these things, you know, oh, I don't need to worry about this right now. I know there's gonna be a time coming up when I'll take a look at this. Whether it's your weekly review, you know that you're never gonna miss anything, because worst case, you'll catch it during your weekly review. Same thing with if you update your goals every 3 months, you don't have to do it in the meantime, right? So you never have to worry like, oh, should I be taking some time for this?
Yeah, that's a very good idea. So this whole weekly review idea is very nice, I agree. And one of the things that I also struggle with is some of the items on my to-do list just suddenly take a lot more time than I expected. So in the middle of the week, I already know that, oh, I'm so behind now because something that I was supposed to, spend only 2 days now take 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
What would you do then in that situation?
Yeah, so first of all, that obviously happens to everybody, right? Life happens, so I think it's good to acknowledge this for yourself, but also to know that, you're not doing anything wrong if things take longer than you expected. It's not some kind of failure. But we know that this happens to everybody, so we can also know that this is going to happen to us in the future. So I think the first thing is not filling every single minute on your schedule. Sometimes it's very funny. I was visiting a friend in London a couple months ago, and I looked at her schedule. It's like every single minute of the whole week was like planned for like either a meeting or like. And I'm like, that's not realistic. Like stuff is going to take longer. Like a meeting is going to run over. So that's part of the thing, like, is building in, so you can call it margin, building in some margin. But the other thing is, in the end, it doesn't really matter if things take longer than they do, because we always have more that we want to do than we have time to do. Like, you will never complete your to-do list, right? There will always be more stuff that you want to do. So anytime that you finish something, whether it was fast or it took a long time, you need to take a step back and ask yourself, what makes sense to work on next, right? So if something was supposed to take 1 day, but it took 3 days, doesn't matter. When it's done, now you gotta ask yourself, what should I work on next?
Yeah.
If it had taken you the 1 day that you budgeted, you had to have asked the same question. So I think the key is to be really intentional, to step back and to look at all the things that you could do and think what makes the most sense now.
Yeah. And like, do you do that like by the end of the day, or like as soon as you start feeling like, oh, it's off from what I planned before?
Yeah, I usually do it sort of at least once a day. So I have a certain amount of tasks, and I say, this is what I'm planning to do today. And then by the end of the day, if I don't complete, a third of those tasks. I will actually start from scratch tomorrow. I think what you were talking about earlier is the rolling over. Every time that you don't do something, you roll it over until tomorrow,
Yeah.
and suddenly you have 58 things to do tomorrow, and you can't.
Very plausible, yeah.
Yeah, and so by starting from scratch, you force yourself every day to think, no, what actually makes sense to work on today the most? And you force yourself to think, what is a reasonable amount of things to work on today? And then you choose what you think is a reasonable amount of tasks, and hopefully you work your way through them.
And coming back to your point of like building in some slack, right, in your calendar to be able to like expect some kind of like running over. I have this a lot as well. Sometimes it's not because of the things that I'm doing running over, but because when I switch between two completely different tasks, it's very difficult to switch my mind like very fast to another task. Maybe I'm doing maybe some like boring things in Excel for my work, and then suddenly I have to start scripting a YouTube video or filming a YouTube video. Then like that two tasks just don't sit together in half an hour or like an hour even. So how do you go about like these kind of things?
Yeah, that's definitely tricky, and I think for a lot of people watching, this is probably going to sound familiar because it could be that you have a job, but you got to switch from your job to your side hustle like you have with YouTube. But it could also be people who are parents, and so they're parenting, and they work, and all of a sudden they have to switch into parent mode or the other way around.
Yeah.
And this stuff is really tricky. It depends a lot on how much flexibility you have. I think even if you work a job where your schedule is mostly determined for you, to the extent that you can, try to batch similar tasks. So what I, for example, sometimes do is like, Mondays, I'm gonna work on YouTube videos. I'm not even gonna try to do anything else. Maybe I'll go to the gym and that's about it,
Yeah.
And another way you can do that is I'll often have these days that I think of as like catch-up days on lots of little tasks. So I'll be like, Tuesday, I'm not even gonna try to do any sort of hard work or deep work or important work. I'm just gonna see, is it like a challenge to myself? How many little tasks can I complete just to clear, because we all know that like little stuff piles up, whether it's the laundry, home repairs, emails you gotta send real quick, blah, blah. Sometimes I do like 35 of those things in one day. So try and do similar kinds of work on the same day.
Yeah.
I find that the easiest because then you don't have to switch context as much.
Yeah, talking about laundry, I still need to do laundry today.
Today? Oh boy, oh boy.
I'm gonna try to batch it somewhere like next week.
Okay, good.
So not only laundry, but a lot of things that we need to do to maintain ourselves, like do self-maintenance, self-care.
Yeah.
A lot of tasks, small tasks that may seem a bit trivial, but quite important to keep ourselves happy. A lot of times I realize that I don't actually get round to like making myself a nice smoothie or go for a run or hit it in the gym like on a regular basis. So what is your take on this? How we can fit in all of these small tasks but quite important tasks into our work schedule?
It's interesting because a lot of the time when people ask this question, what I hear is a slightly different question, which is, how can I keep doing all the things that I'm already doing and spend more time on the other things? Which is like, if you spend half your week on the couch, you can reduce your time on the couch or on TikTok. I suppose a lot of, if the young people watching, they're probably on TikTok. They can spend less time on TikTok. But I know that you already work very hard. You got your job, you got your YouTube channel, you got your studies. So there's not that much extra room. And at some point, it becomes difficult to spend more time on other things without giving some of the existing things up.
Right.
What I see in a lot of people is that somehow work is more important than everything else, Yeah. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, it always feels that way. And I think part of the problem is that with work, you have deadlines, you have the promise that you made to other people, with your colleagues, or maybe like for me, my YouTube audience. A lot of things that actually have actual consequences if you don't do it. So I think that it makes it feel more important. But in the end, when you look back, you think, oh, this piece of work is actually not that important at all.
Right.
And I gave up going to the gym because of that. That's really not worth it. So yeah. I think that's part of the reason why, and self-care and other like less important things, they don't have deadlines, so you can just kind of like not do it and no one would actually come to you and say, okay, you have to do it because otherwise I would do something to you or something.
But over time, of course, if you don't go to the gym for long enough, you start notice yourself becoming less fit and everything.
Yeah.
And this is why I recommend people, if they set their goals, when they set their goals, and we talked about this in a video on your channel, which people should watch.
Yes.
People should watch that video, is you want to make sure that you set goals for every part of your life. So you set work goals. You also set relationship goals. You set health goals, physical health, mental health. You set travel goals if you have travel goals, and maybe home goals. I also literally, I want like a nice studio to record in. You know what I'm saying? By writing all of those things down and spending time on that, you start to realize, oh, there are other things that are important to me as well. And so if you are spending 50 or 60% of the time that you are awake on work, maybe that doesn't reflect how much you care about. Maybe you don't actually care about your work that much. You know, maybe you only care about your work 30% and you just spend more time on the other things. I know for a lot of people it's difficult to work less because, you know, you make money, bills to pay and stuff. But at least being aware of the other things that you care about forces you to make decisions about how you're gonna spend your time. And yeah, there are no deadlines for home things a lot of the time, or there's no deadlines for getting fit. But at least seeing that this is something that you care about can give you that motivation to spend time on it anyway.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think like not attaching a certain degree of importance to something is also like, it's liberating, I think. When you say, okay, work is as important as my health and going.
It's not.
Like,
your health is more important.
Okay, I agree. Yeah. So it's a like a bad example. But yeah, work is not more important than making content, being creative.
Yeah.
Or like hanging out with friends.
Right.
So that's a very good takeaway for me.
Okay, well, too, I hope that this was helpful, that you got some ideas on what to do. I hope it was also really useful for the people watching.
Absolutely.
And I want to make sure that if people found this interesting, that they go over to Tu's channel, because we did a video very similar to this one, more of the same, and we published it on her channel. And in particular, if there's any of you who are interested in data science careers, data science skills, she has a lot of amazing videos about that. You have what, about 100,000 subscribers now?
Yes.
By the time they're watching this, you're gonna be well over 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, her videos are great. So go watch that one video and go check out her channel as well. Thanks for coming on, Tu.
Thank you, Peter, for having me here.